The Bucs lose another heartbreaker to the Falcons and fall to 4-4 on the season. That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up and welcome into this post-game live reaction episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can follow along on Twitter. I am James Yarcho at @JYarcho_Bucs. Credentialed member of the media covering your Tampa Bay Buccaneers as editor-in-chief of the 813.tv, here with you every Monday through Friday, along with the everydayers. And for that, I want to share my appreciation for your continued support of the show. One of the ways you can support the show is become a Locked On Bucs insider. You're going to get news, rumors, updates, general thoughts, one-on-one conversations with me via text message. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes to become an insider today. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. My biggest takeaways and a soapbox moment coming up in a little bit, but let's start with the biggest moment in this game. And this one is actually kind of a double moment, or maybe kind of a series of moments that completely swung this game in Atlanta's favor in the first half. So the Bucs are up 14-7. Kyle Pitts gets his second touchdown of the game, but Antoine Mayfield Jr. does it again. Strips the ball from Pitts as he was crossing the goal line, and for reasons unknown, there was no goal line camera angle. But you could clearly see on one of the replays that the ball was being held down at the side of Pitts behind his left leg, which had not crossed the goal line yet. And that's when the ball was knocked out. It should have been ruled a fumble on replay. Instead, the call stood and Pitts was awarded a touchdown. On the Bucs' ensuing drive, Baker Mayfield misses a wide open Jalen McMillan on what should have been a 67-yard touchdown catch. And, Falcons just completely lost track of Jalen McMillan on that play. He got behind everyone, but the pass was behind McMillan and it fell incomplete. The Bucs punt, and then Darnell Mooney scores on the Falcons' next possession. That string of moments was huge. It should have been a touchback for the Bucs, up 14-7 and getting the ball. To that point, the Bucs' two scoring drives were 15 plays and 12 plays, both lasting over 7 minutes each and covering over 120 yards. Another long, drawn-out scoring play on the backs of scoring drive on the backs of Rachaad White and Bucky Irving would have put the Bucs up by 14. Instead, they were down 7 and then couldn't bounce back. And look, the referees did the Bucs absolutely no favors in this game. There were some egregious holds that went uncalled that should have resulted in sacks or potentially just forced bad passes by Kirk Cousins. But I'm not here to blame the refs. I absolutely am not. So don't hear what I'm not saying. Even though that replay should have reversed a Falcons touchdown to give the Buccaneers a touchback, there is absolutely no excuse whatsoever for the NFL to not have the proper camera angles for that replay. I guarantee you that they would have had the proper angles at the Chiefs game or the Cowboys game or a Packers game. This was one of the biggest games on the NFL schedule in Week 8 because of the implications that it not only had for a division race, but it could have long-term for the playoff race. The NFL is a multi-billion-dollar company. How is there no camera angle on the goal line? Aren't there pylons with cameras in them now? Where was that? Imagine this happening in a playoff game, a play of that magnitude. Imagine if it happened in a Super Bowl. The NFL would have imploded on itself if this had happened to the Chiefs or the Niners or the Cowboys or even the Bears. An absolute and complete failure. And I cannot imagine any good reason or explanation as to why the refs didn't have the angle that they needed to properly judge this call. If instant replay is going to be a part of the game, and it has been for a very long time, all turnovers are automatically reviewed. All scoring plays are automatically reviewed. There is replay assistance now where they call down to the officials. Because of replay assistance, they added one more second onto the clock of the Colts-Texans game and gave the Colts essentially a free play after it looked like that game was over. They put cameras everywhere. And there isn't one on the most important yard marker on the field? How is that possible? This absolutely has to be fixed moving forward, because there will come a time that a crucial moment in a playoff game or a Super Bowl is going to happen. And if they don't have the proper camera angles for that, it's going to be a disaster. It's an absolute failure by a league that has enough money to install a camera on every foot of every field in an NFL stadium across the country. How that doesn't get the proper treatment is just an unmitigated disaster by the NFL. And it'll probably get fixed now, because they don't want that to happen in a Chiefs game or a Niners game or a Packers game or a Ravens game. But just like Roquan Smith being fined for his hip drop tackle that cost Chris Godwin his season, the NFL is going to say, oh, we made a mistake. We're going to fix it moving forward. Too little, too late to help the Buccaneers now. And oh, shucks, I'm sorry email from the league offices isn't going to do anything. It's not going to change the result of what happened on Sunday. Todd Bowles was told by the officials that they didn't have a better camera angle on that review. And even with the camera angle they have, it should have been ruled a fumble. But you're stuck in a situation there where the call on the field was a touchdown, and based on the only angle where you have decent evidence, there's still not enough there to overturn it. Yes, I believe it should have been overturned. Yes, I believe that the ball was behind Kyle Pitts' leg, which had not crossed the goal line. But again, you're talking about an angle where you don't get a clear line of sight. So there's not enough there to overturn the call on the field. If the call on the field had been fumble and a touchback, it's not getting changed to a touchdown. I want to commend Hockley for the way he announced that review, because he did the right thing. He said after review, the call on the field stands. He didn't say the call on the field is confirmed. By saying stands, he is saying we don't have enough evidence to overturn this. So we have to stick with the call on the field. But my goodness, it changed everything about that football game. It really, really did. And the Bucs had their chances, and they could have, capitalized on some of the stops that the defense got in the second quarter. I'm going to talk more about Baker Mayfield's performance coming up in a little bit, but that can't happen again. The NFL, for as much money as they make, and for as big of a product as they have, and for as much of the calendar year as they dominate in order to maximize profits, to not have a goal line camera angle for every single play, no matter where the play is starting, no matter what channel is broadcasting the game, a goal line camera is the most important thing that you can have. And it was a failure. So going to jump into the chat before we move on. We got Lucas in the chat saying the defense is trash. I'll talk more about the defense coming up in a little bit, but yeah, they did not look good. They got a couple of really good stops at the beginning of that second half. The offense just didn't do anything with the opportunities. We got Joe that says if the Bucs fumbled at the goal line, we would have had sky cam, turf cam, diagonal cam. I don't know if it's quite that extreme. Again, the refs didn't do the Bucs a whole lot of favors in this one, but there's only so much they can do when you don't have the proper camera angles. I shouldn't say more upset or frustrated. I'm just as frustrated about some of the egregious holding calls that Atlanta got away with throughout that game. Destined for greatness is my biggest gripe with the offense. We had Otten cooking early in the game, and then for some reason went away from him until late in the third quarter. Why did we go away from him? I don't know. And again, I go back to needing to see the all 22. I need to see some of these end zone angles to look to see if Otten tore them up so bad that all of a sudden he was the primary focus of the defense and they were starting to bracket coverage. But yeah, Otten was having an absolutely incredible game. They went away from him. They did go back to him. He ended up with 2 touchdowns in this one, but I would have liked to have seen him get more involved in this game. And then I did see, Destined for Greatness again. James, nice shirt. I dig it. Again, a big shout out to Brandon and everybody over at Duvin Designs. They hooked me up with this shirt. I wore the jacket that they sent me on Friday's episode. I promised you guys that I was going to wear another one of their shirts for this episode, win or lose. So Brandon and everybody over at Duvin Designs, big shout out to them for hooking me up with this incredible gear. My biggest takeaways on both sides of the ball, that is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but they might be open to that perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users do not visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports because unlike other apps, on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. It's the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineup stays in play even if one of your players leaves in the first half and doesn't return. PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL, all lowercase, all one word, to get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't need to win to get the $50. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listener view every single day. And my biggest takeaway on the offensive side of the ball on this one is that Baker isn't doing a good enough job anymore. And before you scream at me and light up the chat, let me explain. Yes, he is still the league leader in touchdowns. And yes, he overcame the losses of Chris Godwin and Mike Evans to have another solid outing. He was finding Cade Otton all day long. He was finding Raheem Jarrett. He was finding Sterling Shepard and Ryan Miller. But the turnovers are out of control now. It started with 3 in the Saints game. And while not all of those were his fault, The 4 interceptions over the last 2 games are 100% his fault, and he now leads the league in interceptions with 9. He has 7 interceptions in the last 3 games. That's inexcusable, and they have almost all been avoidable. Forcing a jump ball to Ryan Miller, who was covered by Jesse Bates, was a next level bad decision. I know it was a flea flicker and you want to push it down the field and the offense is clicking and it's moving and you're starting to feel it a little bit. But Sean Tucker scored on a flea flicker check down just a couple of weeks ago. You don't force a pass to a guy that was just called up from the practice squad when he's going against one of the best safeties in the league. It was a terrible, terrible mistake. Then another bad decision to throw into double coverage to Jalen McMillan and underthrow it on top of that. Boom, interception for A.J. Terrell. Both of these picks killed really good, promising drives that should have ended in points. Even if they ended in field goals, guess what? That's 6 points. That's 6 more points added to your score when the difference in this game was 5. Maybe at the end of the game, you only need a field goal instead of a touchdown. You got into field goal range. You spike the ball, you send out Chase McLaughlin, boom, you're going home winners. For a guy that was so good at protecting the football early in the season, Baker has unraveled a little bit in that aspect over the last 3 weeks. This was not a game where he can afford to turn the ball over. You don't have Mike, you don't have Chris, and you don't really have the pieces to rally and overcome interceptions. You don't have a defense that is going to go out there and immediately get you the ball back, whether it's with a takeaway or forcing a 3 and out. This offense is the only thing keeping the Buccaneers in games. And when they give away possessions, it's too difficult for them to climb back in at this stage. Yeah, Mike is going to come back, and that's great. But right now, this week, next week, the 49ers game, you can't give those offenses free possessions and cost your team opportunities to score. Scoring is going to be at a premium. And you have a defense that can't stop anyone. If Baker is going to keep giving the ball away, the Bucs are going to keep losing. He's a gunslinger. He's a competitor. I get all that. That's what makes him so great and so special and so much fun. But he has to be a better decision maker if the Bucs are going to stay in the hunt for the postseason. My biggest takeaway on the defensive side of the ball, they stink. That's the nicest way that I can put it right now. This defense stinks. I'm not going to harp on this for real long, but the defense is just terrible. They can't stop the run. They can't stop the pass. They can't get to the quarterback. This is as bad of a defense as we've seen since Mike Smith was the defensive coordinator. They have to go all defense in the draft next year, draft and free agency. You find a way to bring back Chris Godwin. Then you cut Jamel Dean because even before the injury, he was still not living up to his contract. And now, unlike heading into this season, they're in a position where they can cut him loose and not incur a ton of dead cap. But you move on from him. Zion's your number 1. Then it's corner, linebacker, and edge rusher in both the draft and free agency. Load up on those 3 positions. And then let the competition commence. One way or another, you're going to find replacements and upgrades over some of these players. You're going to upgrade over KJ Brett. You're going to upgrade over Jamel Dean. You're going to upgrade over Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. Tyke Smith would have helped a lot in this game. And the offense is good. When Baker's taking care of the football, the offense is good. You don't need to add anyone to that side of the ball. You really, truly don't. As long as you bring back Chris Godwin, this offense, the offensive line is fine. They've been looking good for the last 2 weeks now. But every other player on the offense is good. So all the focus has to go to the defense. Corner, linebacker, edge rusher. Get used to hearing it. I'm going to pound this table for the next 8 months. I pounded the table for running back. Evan was pounding the table for an edge rusher. They got Braswell, which, he's looked good the last couple of weeks, but he's still not making a huge impact as far as the pass rush is concerned. But Antoine, Levante, Zion, Vita, Cansey, Diaby, Hall, Whitehead, they're fine. They're locked. You don't need to do anything with those guys. Every other player on the defense is in danger of either losing their spot on the field or losing their spot on the roster. That's the long and the short of it. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to be nice about it. There are certain players on this defense that they're locked, they're loaded, they're good. You might need to replace Levante David because he retires. I hope not. He's still playing like he's 24 years old, but it's an honest reality. So the Bucs don't need to draft any positions outside of corner, edge rusher, and off-ball linebacker. That's it. Sign them in free agency, draft them, sign them in undrafted free agency, load up, then let them all battle it out. You want a spot on this team, you want a spot on this roster, you want to play in the NFL, earn your job. Because we got a bunch of guys on this defense that can't play. So go out there and show me that you can be a playmaker and you're going to be on this defense with one of the best offenses in the NFL, and you're going to get to compete for a championship. Going to jump into the chat real quick. We got Tyler saying Baker isn't collapsing. He's still a good quarterback. Again, don't take this out of context. It's been the decision-making over the last couple of weeks, trying to force, passes that aren't there, trying to force the ball to players that can't do what Mike and Chris do. He's used to being able to take some of those risks when he's looking to Mike and when he's looking to Chris. He can't do that right now. You can't afford to do that because you don't have the guys on the receiving end of that ball that can win those 50-50 balls, that can win those battles. If that pass to Ryan Miller had been to Mike Evans is wrestling that ball away. Tie goes to the offense. The Bucs keep that ball. Ryan Miller's not that dude. Jalen McMillan has not shown that he can be that dude. So I don't think that Baker is fully collapsing, 100%. But this part of his game, making decisions, using his brain, that part has slipped the last couple of weeks, and it's led to 7 turnovers in 3 games. It's gotta be fixed. I love Baker. You guys know that I have been a Baker fan for years. I was saying right after Brady retired to sign Baker Mayfield. I love the fact that he got the contract that he did. But got to make better decisions, especially when you're shorthanded on the offensive side of the ball. This defense does need a complete overhaul in terms of personnel and scheme, which brings me to my soapbox. That is next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. All know how much I love going to live events, concerts, sporting events. I'm constantly talking on the show about a concert or a game I'm getting ready to go see. And the first place that I'm checking out when I look for tickets is Game Time. In fact, I just used Game Time to get my dad an early birthday surprise. And this coming Saturday, he and I are headed off to Champaign, Illinois to see our Fighting Illini take on the University of Minnesota. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I used Game Time Picks to get us seats in the 10th row in the corner of the end zone on an absolutely incredible deal. And I clicked that little toggle switch, show that all-in pricing, and that way I know exactly what I'm going to spend up front, and there's no surprises when I get to check out. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Whether you're dodging tackles on the field or cheering from your couch, The Joint Chiropractic has your back, literally. As an official chiropractor of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're here to make sure that you're always in the game, no matter your role. If you're feeling the pain after a long week or just looking to stay active, they offer personalized care to help you bounce back stronger. 90% of elite athletes, including NFL pros, rely on chiropractic care to stay at the top of their game and perform their best. At The Joint, you don't need an appointment. Just walk in and get the care you need same day. No scheduling hassles. Just walk in when it's convenient for you. And here's the kicker. As a Bucs fan, you're going to get your first visit for just $19. Head over to Buccaneers.com, check out the contest and promotion section under the fans tab, and download the offer. A great deal for great fans. Head to thejoint.com to find your nearest Tampa area location. Wrapping things up here on a post-game live edition of the Locked On Bucs podcast. And all right, here's the long and the short of it, guys. Todd Bowles' seat needs to be very, very, very warm. We are talking a hair's breadth away from hot and about this far away from engulfed in flames. Todd Bowles was brought to this team in 2019 with Bruce Arians to be the defensive coordinator and get that side of the football straightened out. He did that. He 100% did that. They had one of the best defenses in the NFL when they go on to win a Super Bowl in 2020. They had another incredible defense in 2021. They had a really good defense last year. This year, this is a disaster. The Buccaneers are 31st in the league in yards allowed per game. They are 29th in passing yards allowed per game, 19th in rushing yards allowed per game, 28th in points allowed per game. In what universe is that a reflection of a Todd Bowles defense? It's not. It absolutely is not. A defensive guru of a head coach is in the bottom third in 3 of the 4 major categories with no answers and no end in sight. Forget bottom third. He's in the bottom quarter in 3 of the 4 major defensive categories. And you can only use injuries as an excuse for so long. Kalijah Cansey is back. Antoine Winfield Jr. is back. Jamel Dean is out. Is that really a big difference between him and Tyreek Thunderberg? They lost Bryce Hall in the first week of the season. He probably would have helped a lot right now. Tyke Smith missed this game. Would it really have made that big of a difference? The KJ Britt experiment has failed in every conceivable way. I listed off the players on this defense that are worth protecting, that are locked in. They can't do everything. For a guy who is supposed to be a defensive genius, and again, Todd Bowles has forgotten more about football than me or any of you will ever know. I have nothing but the utmost respect for Todd Bowles as a person and as a football coach. But at some point, you have to take a look at the situation that the Bucs are in and assess blame properly. And I think right now, the lion's share of the blame can be placed at the feet of Todd Bowles. Think about how good this offense has been. You brought in, you had a great defense last year, or a great offense last year, led by Dave Canales, who made seriously questionable decisions at times. He leaves for Carolina. The Bucs hire Liam Cohen. They are 5th in yards per game, 7th in passing yards per game, 8th in rushing yards per game, 3rd in rushing yards per game over the last 4 weeks. And they are 4th in points scored. Liam Cohen and his offense are what is keeping the Bucs in games and in the playoff race. When you are fourth in the NFL in points scored, there's no excuse for you to be at 500 or below. When you are putting up nearly 30 points per game, your defense should not be losing you games. And when you look at that, Todd Bowles is the defensive coordinator. I realize that there are other people that are defensive coordinators. This is Todd Bowles' defense, which means Todd Bowles is the one who deserves the blame. I don't know if the players are not good enough, and maybe I'm giving them too much credit to run this scheme, or if we've reached a point where Todd Bowles' scheme is not translating to today's NFL. Again, your offense is putting up almost 30 points a game. How are you losing? How is your defense giving up more than that? Have you been figured out? Do you not have the right pieces, even though you handpicked all of them? I'm not on this show saying that Todd Bowles should be fired right now today. I'm not. In fact, I would be stunned if Todd Bowles doesn't finish the season as the Buccaneers head coach. What I am saying is that if things don't change immediately, you are getting ready to face the Chiefs and you are getting ready to face the 49ers. Both of those teams have incredible defenses. Your offense without Mike Evans and Chris Godwin is not putting up anything close to 30 points. How are you going to win those games? That's on your defense to make plays, make stops, and hold the other teams to a low scoring output. I have no confidence that's going to happen. None at all. I said on this show 6 months ago, maybe 5 months ago, that Liam Cohen was hired as the offensive coordinator, but was the head coach in waiting. And I'm telling you, at the end of October, right now, that after this season, I believe Liam Cohen is going to be the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Todd Bowles has talked for a little while now about how he's coming close to the end of his coaching career. He's ready to retire, or getting close to being ready to retire and to move on and to focus on being there for his kids. He's missed a lot of his kids' sports and activities and things like that. And I know it bugs him. I think if this defense doesn't get turned around, he's going to take a look and say, you know what? It's time for me to move on. Liam Cohen will take over as head coach. He'll find a defensive coordinator, and we'll start to see a shift. But this offense and some of these playmakers on defense have too much talent to waste in a window where you should be competing for a championship. Prime example is the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals championship window just closed. When they got blown out at home by the Philadelphia Eagles, that's it for them. Their defense is a mess. T. Higgins is going to leave. Their window is closed. The Bucs window is not. Evan Klosky's been on the show talking about how this team was poised more for a championship run in 2025 than 2024. We expected them to be competitive in 2024, maybe even work their way to, the divisional round or an NFC championship this year. But 2025 was where we kind of circled it and said, you know what? Add a couple of more pieces. You'll have a couple of these rookies with a year or two under their belt. That's when you can really compete. They can't compete with this style of defense anymore. I like Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles is genuinely a wonderful person. He has been one of the best defensive coaches in the NFL for a very long time. He is a big reason that the Bucs won a Super Bowl 4 years ago. But he's not getting the job done now. Someone has to answer for that. Going to jump into the chat one more time before we get out of here. Scotty J says we have one loss if we don't turn the ball over. And then he says that's the Ravens. I vehemently disagree. They got absolutely worked by the Broncos. It wasn't turnovers that cost them against the Broncos. They got absolutely worked. So no, it would be more than one loss for sure. We got a Falcons fan being incredibly disrespectful in the chat. So yeah, you can move on. Let's see. We got another Falcons fan in the chat, and he's at least being nice. He says, man, it's so great when you get great games on and the Falcons versus Bucs the last two times delivered. I mean, Justin, you're 100% right. I mean, the games, if you look at them from a football aspect, they were good games. They were exciting games to watch. Congratulations to your Falcons. I appreciate you being in here and being respectful. I don't mind opposing fans coming in and joining in the chat, watching the reaction from the opposite side, as long as you're respectful. Don't come in here being a jerk. Be respectful to me, be respectful to the other people in the chat, and you can be in here all you want. Keep doing your thing. Let's see. We got Scotty J again. James, we need to draft best available linebackers rounds 1 and 2. Maybe we'll get more into that. They need corner, they need linebacker, they need edge. Any of those three, I don't care what order it's in. You keep it moving. Last one. We got Jordan in the chat says, what can we do about KJ? He has to go. He's your linebacker for the rest of the season. They might throw JJ Russell in there to try to change things up. But KJ Britt he's your linebacker. They're not going to make a trade. They're not going to sign anyone that's going to be better. So you just deal with it the best you can. That is going to do it for this episode because I am so far beyond over on time that Ross Jackson is going to yell at me. So please check out everything going on over at the 813.tv. Follow on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at JYarcho_Bucs. Become a Locked On Bucs insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes. Make sure you are following on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. Want to thank you so much for joining me right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.